Howdy y'all, welcome to Nerd Studio. Hey, we're out at the range today with a couple of things. First of all, I want to do an update, talk about the changes I've done to the Glock 41. I just got this back from Rock City Guns and want to start a series of videos on reloading. Stay tuned. Yeehaw! I think we've made all the changes we're going to make to the old Glock 41 here. We've got the True Glow TFO sights. Glenn did the trigger work. It's down to about 4.5 pounds. Feels really crisp. Really like the way he does the trigger on a Glock. We got the Tango down base plates on all the magazines. That's a nice add-on. I really like that. And of course we've got tail and grips, which I don't really have handguns without them anymore. They make such a difference. That's about it for modifications. We've shot it a little bit today. I'm going to lead us into kind of the next piece of what I'm going to talk about in this video, and the gun feels great. So that's the Glock 41. So I've never done kind of a two-subject video like this before, at least not that I can recall, so bear with me if it seems a little hinky, but I really wanted to start a series of videos on reloading. And this is going to be video one. There's been a bunch of you that have asked me about do you reload, and if so, what's your process and all that. And so I want to talk to you about that. I'm going to. But a little caveat. So what I'm not going to try and do is teach you to reload. I am not an expert reloader. I'm very much an amateur. I've done some of it and I have not had any accidents with it. There is a lot of information out there on reloading and it's a huge subject. So I'm not going to be able to really, give you a step-by-step on most things. What I can talk to you about is the process we go through, the equipment we use, and the products we choose to reload with. So let's do that. All right, let's talk about reloading. First things first, and this is why I'm not going to try and teach you to reload, because I'm not qualified. I'm an amateur reloader, and honestly, most of the reloading that goes on around Nerd Studio is done by Bob, primarily because he has the time to do it carefully. When you're reloading ammunition, if you create too much pressure in a round, you can cause your gun to explode. If it exceeds the pressure capacity of your firearm, you can blow yourself up. You can blow your hands off, your head off. You can blow up the guy next to you. If you create rounds that don't have enough pressure, that can also cause a problem because there are grooves in your barrel. And that's what causes the bullet to spin. And if you don't have enough pressure and that bullet doesn't actually exit the barrel, it sticks in there. The next round you fire, if it has full pressure, or even if it has less, what do you got? Kaboom, right? Blow your hands off, blow your head off, guy next to you again. So how does that happen? If you don't seat the bullet deep enough, if you seat the bullet too shallow, if you add too much powder, if you add too little powder, if you don't put enough crimp on the bullet, if you put too much crimp on the bullet, all of those things will cause low and high pressure and can do very bad things. And you have to be very careful when you reload to make sure you don't do that. So that's my caveat. Does this save you money? Well, it really depends on how you look at it. The reality is, I don't think you could ask any reloader who would tell you that it saves them money. Reloading does two things. It allows you to shoot more because you have more ammunition to shoot because it was less expensive to make. Or it allows you to create precision loads. This is a very big deal for hunters and people who competition shoot. So, if you're looking for the exact right load for your gun, reloading is often the only way to accomplish it. So that's why you reload. Does it save money round over round? Technically, yes. But I think you'll find if you get into reloading that really what it does is either allow you to be more accurate or allow you to shoot more. So let's talk about costs. First thing you need to think about are the tools you need. And the list of tools, I wish I could tell you, but they're gigantic. And really, my advice is start small. That's how we did. Start small, buy a kit, and go from there. One thing you're going to need some sort of press that operates, that puts the bullets in and punches the primers out, all of that. And for every caliber you want to reload, you're going to need a set of dies. Now these dies cost you, I don't know, 35 to 50 bucks, and up and down, and we could argue about what the actual cost is all day, but think $35 to $50. And what these do is these fit into your reloading press, and they allow you to, they help you punch out the primer and seat the bullet and make sure the case is the right size, all of that. And there are different configurations for doing this. I'm not going to get into it in this video. But for instance, this particular set of dies is for loading 38 special. We have dies for 45, 9mm, 40, 38 special, probably 223, and a couple more that we reload. 308, definitely you need the dies. You're going to need a press to operate these dies, so that's the thing, you know, clunk, a clunk, a clunk, and there's all kinds of different presses out there. A bunch of different manufacturers. We started with a single stage press, and what that single stage press means is you put in one die and you go through and you punch out all your primers. Then you switch the die to the resizer and you go through and you resize all your dies. And it gets pretty boring. If you've got 500 rounds to load, you're going to ka-chunk, and you're putting bullets in. But that gets you through it, and it makes sure that you go very slow. Now, we had what's called a progressive press, which is essentially, think of it as like an ammo plant. In fact, that's what the one we had was from Hornady. That's what they called it, was an ammo plant. And it would feed the cases and punch the primers. And every time you pulled the lever, it would spin a set of die or a set of bullets in varying stages of being reloaded. And when it worked right, it worked very well. The problem is there's two problems with it. One is the Hornady lock and load that we had required a lot of tinkering, and that got old really fast. And the other thing is you've got to make sure that you're really watching everything that's going on. You got to make sure you don't put too much powder in. You don't seat the bullet doesn't seat it properly. And sometimes with a progressive press that can go wrong. Now, there's brand arguments about there, and I'm not really going to get into that, but needless to say, we have stuck with a single stage press because it forces you to go slow and it forces you to be accurate. Does this save you money? Well, yes and no. It does per round cost less. If you already have the brass, it costs you less to reload that brass and create a new bullet than it does to buy another bullet with the brass. Generally speaking, if you ask most reloaders, they're going to tell you two things. It doesn't really save them money. What it allows them to do is shoot more or load rounds for accuracy. So they're trying to create a load rounding deer or environments, whatever they're trying to do, because they can be very precise about how much powder and the weight of the bullet and the seating depth and the overall case length and all this technical details that we'll get into it at another time, because it allows them to pay very close attention to that and make sure that it's the same every time. It allows them to be very precise. So people reload, generally speaking, for those two reasons. It allows them to shoot more, and it allows them to create loads that are very accurate. Well, what about components? What are you going to need? You've got your brass that you've already fired. Now, you can buy new brass, and it's really nice stuff, but it's very expensive. And what we found is by the time you add up the costs of doing all of this, if you've bought new brass, it's actually cheaper to just go ahead and buy brand new bullets from some manufacturer. Go ahead and go out and buy from Hornady. What we do is we go out and we buy like target loads from Freedom Munitions. We shoot through those. We save the brass, and then we reload that brass, and that's where the savings comes in. After that, you're going to need bullets, you're going to need primers, and you're going to need powder. What you're seeing us test here in this video are bullets from a company called Lucky 13. They're here in, I think, Kernsville, North Carolina. And what they are a cast lead bullet. And cast lead is probably the cheapest way to go in buying bullets. The problem with cast lead is on its own, the lead will build up in your barrel, and you've got to consistently make sure you clean that lead out of the barrel. Otherwise, your accuracy will decrease over time if you don't clean the lead deposits out. They have a product, and there's lots of companies out there that do this. We happen to wanted to try this one because they were here in North Carolina, that put a polymer coating on them. This one happens to be green. And what that polymer coating does is it reduces, or hopefully eliminates, the barrel fouling, and that's part of what we're testing here. Now, when you've got your bullets and you've got your powder and all of that, that amounts to a recipe. And just like going out and cooking, if you're going to down in your kitchen, you're going to cook, how well that meal is going to turn out probably depends on how well you follow the recipe. And that can't be stressed any larger for reloading. And so really when you start, what I recommend is that you go out and get some known recipes to work with. Most of the powder companies out there that produce gunpowder for reloading have recipes that tell you if you use this bullet of this caliber and this weight, and you use this much of our powder, you will get a bullet that produces this much energy. And really that's the best place to start. Over time, you're going to find that if you're trying to reduce costs, like using something like this cast lead bullet, you may have to tinker a little bit, but you'll get a feel for really when you're in the danger zone. But if you don't know, don't do it. Stick to the recipes. That's my advice. Last but not least, I recommend that you test your loads. And what do I mean by that? Well, you can see in the video here, we're using a chronograph to measure how fast the bullet is moving. So if you look at a recipe, it's going to tell you a bunch of things about what that load should produce. And it's going to tell you one key thing that you can measure, and that's how many feet per second that bullet is moving. If you know how many feet per second the bullet is moving and you know the mass of the bullet, you can do calculation to know how much muzzle energy is there. So if you have a chronograph and you can measure the speed of the bullet, you can pretty much tell how close you got to the recipe. And you can tell how much you're varying from the recipe round after round. And that's what you see us doing here in this video. Now, chronograph costs money. It's going to run you about $100 for well, pretty much any of them are going to be around $100. Think $80 to $120. We got ours off of Amazon. It came highly recommended, and it allows you to test strings of bullets. So you can shoot a bunch of bullets, up to 10 of them, and it will tell you what the high and the low, what the speed of each round was, and what the average of them all was. And then we compare that to the recipe that we started with. And we always start with somebody's recipe, whether we take the powder manufacturer and we look at what their recipe is for cast lead bullets for this particular round from Lucky 13. That's how we started. We started with the cast lead bullet recipe, and now we are comparing the speed of this bullet to the powder manufacturer's speed that they say they get out of that recipe. So basically that tells us how close did we get. And what we found in this particular test was, we're getting mid 700s to high 700s of feet per second, and we were expecting out of that recipe 820 or something like that. So we're pretty darn close. We are certainly in a safe zone. We are not overpressured. We are not underpressured. That's our introduction to reloading. I hope you find this useful. I wish I could tell you step 1, 2, 3, bang, you get bullets. Bang, you get bullets. That's pretty funny. The reality is it's just too big a subject for me to do that in a few videos, and it would be dangerous for me to insinuate that I could. What I'm hoping to do over this series is to do a couple of things. Help you to avoid some of the missteps that we've made, maybe save you a few bucks, point you in a direction at certain pieces of gear that we've used over time, that we've tried. And other than that, I really want to encourage you that if you will be careful and meticulous, you can reload your own ammunition. It doesn't take up a lot of space. I think you can see in some of the little screen grabs I've done here that Bob's doing it in his bedroom, right next to his bed, and where he sets up his computer. So it can be done. You don't need a giant reloading room for it. It'd be nice to have one, but you don't absolutely have to have it. All right, well, stay tuned. We'll do 2 or 3 more of these videos. I really hope it helps. Always remember, anyone can shoot, and honestly, anyone can reload their own ammunition if you're careful. Anyone can shoot and have fun. We'll see you next time.
Yeehaw!